What's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. And how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for the wink.
Yeah.
Today's question is, have you ever caught yourself hoping for action or hoping for that big call? Because if you work in law enforcement, then you're not alone. Talk to us about it.
You know, I'm thinking about it as you were speaking on it, as you really, I remember first starting in law enforcement, you're always hoping for, because you want to, I'm hoping for that big incident. Now you're hoping for that big call for service it could be a multifaceted thing. Is you're hoping to show your worth, show you what you can do, what you're capable of, or just to prove to yourself. It could be to prove to others or prove to yourself of how you're going to respond to that incident.
Some first responders really crave those high adrenaline calls, especially the younger ones or the newer ones. And I'm thinking of a reserve officer that I know who really exhibits a lot of what we're going to talk about off duty. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we can balance that urge without compromising your mental health or even your emotional health.
Yeah, I think I'm looking back, and I remember when I first started, you're craving for those, having to fight with somebody, having to go be the first one on scene to that homicide. And I can specifically remember a day that I had so many adrenaline rushes and adrenaline dumps that it exhausted me by the end of the day. And it's funny because I was in training, and with my FTO, the FTO that always sees your dad at the restaurant they go to regularly. And I just remember it was call after call that was so adrenaline packed. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was new to me. So I was getting those adrenaline rushes and you start craving that. And now I look back, I'm like, why? Why was I even getting amped up over these situations?
Yeah. And I think that some examples could be, you might feel bored or antsy on routine days. So an example would be that you find yourself super annoyed with those quiet or boring calls. And I think it matters because having that constant craving for chaos can actually numb your ability to find value in routine service.
I crave the days of just those quiet, calm days. Like you don't say the Q word. Like, man, it's really quiet tonight, because then you curse yourself. And it's crazy how much that's changed over my years there.
Yeah, and I think too, you might use humor or bravado to kind of mask that craving. And what I mean by that is you can joke about needing to find a good fight tonight or hoping for a good foot pursuit. And I think that's something that you hear a lot with the younger officers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. These guys, they crave that adrenaline rush. They crave, I want to get the next bad guy. And I think there's a underlying truth with it. They're not craving to take a bad guy off the street. They're craving for that adrenaline rush, that rush to go out and be involved in something bigger than them just dealing with that incident.
You're right. Those seemingly harmless comments might reflect a deeper need to actually feel alive or actually feel purposeful. And another one is that you chase that high when you're off duty. So this could, of course, be things like reckless driving, risky hobbies, thrill-seeking behavior. But I'm also thinking about that same reserve officer who he always finds himself in the most precarious situations. Like, he's always the one who is that first car right in front of a TC on the freeway, so he pulls over and stops. Or he's always the one who's at a liquor store and there's like an robbery in progress, for example. Like, he's always that one. And I think that our rhetorical activating system actually allows us to kind of draw attention to those types of things. So when we're constantly seeking it out, even on a subconscious level, like those things are going to be drawn to you because whether you realize it or not, you're paying attention to certain cues and things that are going to put you in that situation.
It's so funny. I think about one of my partners who's retired now. Him and I used to ride together all the time. And I remember this very vividly, and he looks over at me. We were close to a major call for service. It was a man with a gun / shooting call, and he looks over. He's all, "We're gonna get into a shooting right now." He's all, "It's just, that's my luck. I'm going to be like, this is what's going to happen." And I look at him like, "Do you know who you're riding with?" I'm the opposite of that. This is going to pan out to where we're not going to locate anything, and it's going to be resolved before anyone else even gets there. He's all, "Yep, we'll see." And we get there, and sure enough, it was resolved, and we were clear before anyone else showed up. And he looks at me, he goes, "But I'm a shit magnet. This stuff always happens." So I'm like, "But you're with me, so it didn't."
Yeah, and I truly believe that energy balanced things out.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that, because I think if you always think you're going to be involved in those situations, you're going to attract them more. And to where on the opposite end, if you think, hey, it's going to work out the way it should, then it's going to balance it out.
Yeah, and the reason that I say I truly believe that is because you and I have profoundly experienced that in our lives, and then created that shift. When we were first married, for the first 3 to 4 years, it was, okay, of course this would happen to us. This kind of thing always happens to us, until we did a lot of deep work and we realized really mindset shifts, and how creating those mindset shifts would completely transform the way that things happen in our lives. And, you can call it the law of attraction, you can call it God, but I truly believe that it has a lot to do with our neurological energy that creates those shifts in our lives, because all of these micro moments, all of these teeny tiny things that happen are all a reflection of our mindset. And, I have my dream car, we have our dream house. Like these are just like byproducts of that example of energy.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, I'm the definition of Murphy's Law," and being able to say that to them, it's almost a badge of honor for them. And I go, why? Why is that a badge of honor? Why don't you look at, why don't you try finding, okay, why does something bad have to happen? Why can't it be something good?
Yeah. Another example of this is that you're only on during chaos. So maybe you're feeling disengaged until something dangerous happens, and then you suddenly feel super hyper alert. This emotional regulation can get hijacked. So it can leave you super emotionally flat outside of emergencies. And that goes to the tone of what you were talking about with that day of just having that hypervigilance on over and over again throughout the day.
Yeah, you're attracting, and that law of attraction is really big. Being able to bring in that negativity or positivity, I think it's huge on being able to draw in what you truly want.
Yeah, but there's some ways to be able to balance out this thrill with your emotional well-being. And I think the first one is to just recognize that the rush is what it is. So I guess acknowledge that part of the job feels exciting, but don't let it define your worth or your purpose. It's just a part of the job.
Yeah, being able to have that difference of not always seeking that adrenaline rush, or not always trying to find that negativity associated to whatever it may be. Because ultimately what's going to end up happening is you're going to start seeking some unhealthy habits off duty, and you don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of an officer who actually, he looks for that adrenaline hit without the danger by doing things like hiking and CrossFit and just things that are physically challenging off duty. Yeah.
Having things that make you like get that rush in a healthy way, because it's healthy to have almost an adrenaline coming into your system to keep moving forward, but to have it to take not a risky approach to it, but a healthy way.
I think too that I don't hear a lot of officers talking about this together. And I think it's so important to make sure that you are opening up and talking about it to normalize processing it.
Yeah, being able to look at a situation and say, okay, let's debrief this. Let's look at the pros, the cons, everything with it, and being able to say, okay, well, this is how I reacted. This is how you reacted. This is how we can address it better in the future.
Yeah, not beating around the bush here, but I feel like this can be incredibly detrimental and dangerous, not only to you, but to the people that you work with. And I think it's important to kind of redefine your purpose on the job. For you, Clint, I know that this came with time and experience and confidence and learning from other people mostly. But I think that it's important to shift your focus from those high octane moments to more of long-term impact, like mentorship, service, leadership.
And I think, like, I can go run scenarios through my head and those high tense situations to where, like, I'll get there, I'm the supervisor now, and I show up after the initial stuff typically, but sometimes I'm there right in the heart of everything, and I show up and you see these newer officers, they're, they have big eyes, they're all amped up, and I come in and I'm just like, hey guys, what we got? and it's being able to recognize that and knowing how you can debrief it with them on the back end to where you're not specifically saying, hey, you were a little high strung there. It's being able to say, look, this is how we can change things.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.